Welcome to today's user training, where we will dive deep into Celum experience and Celum content templates. Before we start, let me just inform you that as usual, our session is going to be recorded and you will receive the recording in the upcoming days. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the question panel of GoToWebinar, and we will answer as many of them as possible at the end of the presentation. Now, let me introduce our speaker. I'm delighted to welcome my colleague Steve. He is the product manager of Celum Experience, and he is going to lead today's session. And even though in Austria the summer holidays have already started, he is so kind and will be our teacher for the next 40-45 minutes. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Great to have you with us today. Yeah, to make the most of our time together, I will just hand over microphone and screen to you so that we can jump right into the topic.
Thank you very much, Isa. I'm happy that we now do get a chance to do a little user training to the content templates after I was not able to join the summit, unfortunately. And before we hop into the system and get our hands dirty, let's briefly talk about why we think content templates are a thing and in which space we're moving around, basically. So I think we are all agreeing and aware that content creation has never been easier, but the real challenge now is quality and brand consistency at scale. I think, yeah, it's clear that stuff that has taken months and weeks before, when we think about, a big retailer that would need weeks to create, assets for every single product that they have, this could be done very quickly nowadays. But the problem is the brand consistency and the quality, as I mentioned. You could say that content creation at scale is broken at the moment. The thing that we all share, I think, is that we don't know projects that have very comfortable deadlines. So tight deadlines across marketing, design, and communications is a very big factor here, because the time constraint, of course, makes the content creation an even more critical topic. And the big challenges here are the inconsistencies, as we mentioned before, especially when it comes to multiple channels and multiple teams. So many people working together without strong restrictions, it's just inevitable that there will be inconsistencies and that brand identity will suffer. Also, not every role has design experience, obviously, and that in itself is not a bad thing. But when it comes to all these materials and the communication, of course, if these materials move over multiple desks of people who don't have design skills, it's also inevitable that the end product will probably not look like the design department actually has intended. And also, we have a very quickly growing demand for content variation across platforms. So the more we know about our users and the more we can use this data to customize content, of course, the more variation exists and the more different types of content we have to create. And the one that's always there is, of course, budget and resource constraints, which all plays into why we think content templates are a really helpful tool. And what's really helpful about content templates is, first of all, it's already in the name. It is basically a pre-designed thing that already has all the brand attributes and the different layouts saved and stored, so that the consumer of the template is basically so fenced in their actions that it's really hard to mess it up. So the template is built by the expert, but it's usable by anyone, which of course means that you have a little bit more effort in the very beginning, where you actually build the template, you set up the constraints, and that's exactly what we will do today. But the person using the template can very quickly just fill in the missing pieces, export it, and use it. Of course, the customization the customization becomes much easier for different use cases with this system and this approach. And the scalable content production can actually happen across channels and across regions, across different departments and so on. What we are really aiming for is this consistent output without any extra governance effort. And governance is, I think, what's becoming harder and harder with AI in the picture, not the creation of something. Okay, this is already one slide too far. We will actually jump into our system now. And of course, I hope we have a couple of guests here and listeners that are able to join in and really follow me now. So the first thing I want to do, I will share my screen in a second, but I'll first share a link. Is that you please all open that link up. You don't have to download anything there yet. There's nothing to do until further notice. So you should be seeing what I'm seeing now. And ideally, we also see the same order of assets here. So please scroll down. I'm not at the top of the page. Scroll down to the Tools Content Template Webinar PSD and download it. The download will be triggered immediately, even though you will see the spinner for a bit longer. And we'll just take a few seconds so everyone has this file on their system, basically downloaded to their local machine before we will then import it into Experience. Just while you're doing that, I'm gonna add a few more details for the guests that maybe do not have the system set up or are not as aware of the feature itself. Just so we're talking one more time about this template aspect, I will actually show you one of our sample portals and a pretty good example for a content template. So we'll scroll down and go to a specific content template here, this one. Of course, one use case where it is very, very useful to have a template that no one can mess up and just fill in the details is a business card. So if we are going into this content template on our portal, you will see that when I hover over here, there's only very few elements that I can actually edit, and that's the text bits of it. So my phone number, my email address, location, name, and so on, job title, but I can't change anything about the design. I can't move anything around here. I can't change the QR code. I can't change any logos on the second page. So just to emphasize one more time what this template aspect really means, if it wasn't clear so far. In the meantime, I hope most of you has gotten their file ready. And what we'll do now is go to Experience. That's our little icon here on the system bar, which we chose before Twitter was taken over by Elon Musk, by the way. So X has nothing to do with this. I hope everyone is here now. Please now just click the New button and choose the Import Content Template option. And in here, you can either use your system, file picker, or you can just go to your download folder and throw it in there into the local into your system speaker. And after you click Open, we will actually start importing this content template. And of course, there's multiple steps happening in the background now. We're basically going from a PSD format, which is an export option from Adobe Photoshop, which is a very common software. Obviously, we could also import an IDML file, but today we are using a PSD. And as you can imagine, as usual, when you're importing something from one system that was built by one company into another system, there's a lot of steps that need to happen. And they did now. And you can see there is a warning now. And I wanted to use this warning to actually explain a few things that content templates have to do with custom fonts. So let's check out what's in there. You can see that I've got a snack bar that says something has gone wrong with the import. And if I open it, I'm getting more infos about it. So apparently there are two different fonts in the content template. that are not supported, which usually means they're just not in our system. And I want to touch on that because the custom fonts feature is not too old, and it's an important step for you later on when you'll do this with your own PSD and HTML files, or maybe you're even creating the content template from scratch in here. In any case, if you want to use your custom fonts, you will always have to first go to account management, or if you're the admin, you can do it yourself. Otherwise, you would have to ask an administrator to do this. Of course, this is a setting you don't want everyone to mess with. This should be a person that knows exactly what they're doing. And under global settings, we have our custom fonts section. And here you can either drag and drop all your font files in there, or you can just click plus. And I actually have a font here. So just as a quick example, you can just mark them, open them. They will be immediately imported. Font files are not very big. You will have the license information here, and you will be able to see which font weights are actually part of the upload. I'm just doing this here to show you how you will do this later, but we will actually work with the template without these fonts now, because our default font is almost the same. But just so you know, if you should ever see this warning, please upload your custom fonts first, because they are hopefully the ones that are being used in the template. That's the assumption here, of course. So the logical bit here is whatever font you have in your template needs to be in our system first, so it can be matched and stay exactly the same. First fonts, then import. Okay, so let's see how our imported file actually looks like. And as I mentioned, from one system to the other, there will definitely be some sort of slight discrepancies. There are so many thousands of options that you can do in Photoshop, which is amazing, and that's what makes it so capable. But it's impossible that every single detail from one system will be translated without any mistake into another system. So let's check it out. I think in terms of different shapes and positions and so on, it's fine. But you can see already that this text goes a little bit far here, and the text blocks are not perfect. So I'm going to get rid of this warning here. Let's see what we can do to prepare this template here, or this raw template, so that everyone after us can actually use it without knowing anything about the design system, without doing anything wrong. The first thing I would do is to get all the text boxes in the right size and then make them placeholders. So let's start by doing that. I'm just clicking onto any text block. Let's start with the first one. And I can already see the frame of this text block is actually bigger than where I want my text to go. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit smaller. And we will also define how far to the right our text can go. We still want to have a good distance to our image here. So I will go here. And now we, of course, want to make sure that all the other text boxes are aligned. And this is very easy with our solution here. You will always see which lines correspond to another line that was set in another element. And in this case, I also want to make the block a little bit higher here. It's actually nice if the line aligns with the bottom circle of this image here. And for the last text box, we will also just make it the same width. And here I'm actually fine with the two lines. We will fix that the text goes so close to this with the next step. As a last text block that I want to adjust, let's use the call to action here. That also should be replaced by someone else later. And here we will make sure that we also leave some distance to the sides of this button that can later on be clicked. And that's it in terms of resizing, let's say. And just so we are on the same page, what's the use case for a template like this? We could imagine that this is the top of an email banner for now. So we are showing this at the top of an email, and clicking on this button will lead you to the registration form of the webinar, for example. So now let's make sure that this distance here looks a little bit better and that the text can't overflow anywhere. So we'll start with the first box here. Again, we're just selecting the element, and you can see there's a lot of options here on the side. It's 100-fold less than in Photoshop, but you can't design anything without a couple of menu points. So that's a little bit unavoidable. And important is that we're just being in the design tab of this panel here. First of all, we'll take a look at this later, but for now, please go to design. And now what we're doing is basically ensuring that any text that's bigger than this box is cut off. We don't want this to be possible, that anything flows out of our text box. So we will just select one of these advanced options. So design tab, advanced options, you just click in here. We can ignore the top part. We are only interested in this. And what's happening here is, first of all, it's deciding if the frame automatically scales in 2 dimensions, or if it scales just up and down, or if it does not scale. And in this case, I don't want the frame to grow with the text, as I said. I want the frame to dictate in which space the text can live, basically. So we will keep this option, and we will select clipping. And we can actually briefly try this out even. What this does is, while I'm writing, I can, write however much I want, but as soon as I'm leaving the text box, which is, then the actual state that would go into an export of this content template, but don't worry about it too much. We'll see this in action. The text will be cut off. So I'll just show you. I'll just type some random characters. You can see while I'm typing, we of course have to maintain the input field so you can see what you're doing. But if you click outside, everything that's outside the text box will be gone. So if we would have a space here and here, that would still fit in. This is already too long, but everything that's outside of it can't actually go in here. So we have done what we wanted with the first box. We also want to do this for the others, and this is an important hint. It's good to do this in bulk, because you will see these menus. I can just click on another text element, and this stays open. So I can just do this, a couple of times quickly. I will put this on as well, thereby clipping off the text because I'm not currently inputting, and we will do the same here. So now we've done it for all these 3 text boxes, that there's no way that you can write outside of it for the final export of the template. And we'll also do the same here. You can see now, that's why you do this while you're building the template. It seems like the text itself was already too big for the box, so we'll adjust this little text box to make sure that the entire text can live in here. And in this case, I can actually also change the vertical alignment, this option, to center align it to make sure that it's really in the middle here. And this way, again, we've made sure that no one can write outside of this text box with the on option of the clipping. Okay, so now let's actually make these different text boxes placeholders, because at the moment they're just elements of our design. What we want them to become is a placeholder for something to be filled in by the person consuming the template later on. So in here with time and place, I'm actually happy. In here, we could just change the text to title. And in here, we could just call this subtitle to, oops. If you do something wrong, of course, you can always use Command Z, like I did at the moment in just now, and we will see a snack bar that there's a redo action. So what I wanted to do was not remove this box, but just put a subtitle in here. And we will do the same here. Actually, here I'm also happy with it to be called CTA. So now we have changed the text inside of it, and now we will actually make this a placeholder. Before, I have said we are doing stuff in the design tab. Now we will actually do this with the placeholder tab. What are we seeing here? So as soon as I choose placeholder, we're basically seeing all the different ways in which you could alter this element. You could allow to change, for the consumer to change the opacity. You could allow them to delete the entire thing. You could allow them to move it around. You could allow them to scale it, all the different things you're seeing in here. What I want is for the consumer to only be able to edit the text, nothing else. So we will choose something under the text part of this panel, obviously. So I'm going to choose allow to edit text. And also I want this thing to act as a placeholder. What this does is in fact not that much. It's only making sure that as soon as the consumer clicks into the box becomes empty. If you would not check this, you first have to mark the text and then remove it, basically. So it's just a slight difference, but it's a nice add-on. And we will do exactly the same for the other two. Again, allow to edit text. The text should act as a placeholder. We will do this here, and also for our call to action. We will not touch the name and occupation for these two at the moment, so we can later on see what's the difference between the elements that we have altered and the ones that we have kept the same, because obviously this will not be able to be edited by the final or in the final template. Okay, with this, I'm happy with all the text stuff. Let's move on to what we can do for our images here. So the idea here is, of course, that employees can use this template, just put their faces in here instead of the placeholders, change the title, subtitle, call to action, and all the details, and then send this out. Right now, this is just a PSD file, basically, or it still looks like the PSD file, let's say. And we want to make sure that any picture that's placed in here by the consumer of the template is, fenced in a way that you can't mess it up. That's the theme, as you are realizing the whole time. So let's click on here. And again, we are already in the placeholder tab. In this case, we want the consumers to be able to change the fill of this, obviously, right? We want them to replace the image. So we will go here and basically say allow to replace fill content. And also here we can say it should be possible for this to act as a placeholder. And we also want that the consumer is able to crop the image, because that way they can use images that are not maybe perfectly adjusted for this, and to fiddle around with the image itself later on. But we still don't want them to delete it, move it, or do anything else with it. So I will check mark the allow to crop, and you can see the element is actually square, right? It's not a circle like you could be tricked into thinking, but it's actually a square. But we want everyone who's placing an image here to see a square in the end as well. So if you add to see a circle as well, because if you add a square, then the square image doesn't really fit into the intended design. So long story short, we want to change the shape of this element. That's why I'm going to go back and actually go to design. And you can see under shape here, we can make this corners rounder. And look at the square while I'm doing this. If I pull this to the right, you can see that this entire shape actually becomes a circle. And this is exactly what I would like you to do as well. Just pull it all the way there so it becomes a full circle. And by that, we have basically constrained the input box, let's say, to a circle. Again, we will leave this guy alone so that we can see the difference later on. And now we should, of course, define which assets can be used to replace this image. To do that, we can simply click pre-select assets right over here. And you can see now that the assets that we have in here are only the assets that were part of the imported PSD. So all the shapes that are images are shown here, and the images that we have. We most likely want the consumer to replace this image with something else. In this case, it would be a library with all the images of the employees of a company. At this point, I should mention, at the moment, it's not possible that in the final product, so in the content template, the consumers cannot upload their own images. This is a feature that's already in concept, and we will ship this according to the prioritization. But so far, our customers were more interested into maximum governance, basically, where the libraries itself provide the images. So without further ado, let's add a library to this template. We just need to go to, maybe that's a bit quick, we just need to go to the 3 dots in the top right corner. We can go to edit content template. We go to libraries. And Of course, in your case, you will have to upload an image. I will just show you this here. You will probably not have a prepared library for this because you didn't know what we will be doing exactly. But I'll still show you, of course, how that works. In our demo environment, we have hundreds of thousands of libraries. So this will take a second to load. And then we'll just choose any of these tools libraries that we have so we get a little bit more content to choose from. I know that there is a couple of tools libraries in here, and we will just use the product images, this one, and maybe gardening. I don't know exactly what's in these libraries, but should be good. And as soon as I save, the beauty of libraries is there is nothing, that still needs to be loaded into something else. So we basically get all the different assets that were in this library, and we can choose from them. So let's go back to our pre-select assets here for the image, and we will on purpose use a square image as well. We'll use one of our ex-employees here, and there's another square image I think that I saw. I have no idea who created these libraries, I promise, but we have some square images in here, so we'll take them. I don't know how Arnold Schwarzenegger ended up in there, but by doing so, I'm going to click here one more time. We have defined exactly which assets are there to replace this. I've clicked here one more time because after we have selected them, they appear actually on top. And then, if you have hundreds of assets here, you have an easier time to add them. Actually, we'll add Georg as well to have a bit of variety. And as I said, we will not do this for the other person. This is a stock image so that we can see the difference. I hope you followed most of those steps. Specifically for you, I will also show you how we'll add an asset that's not part of a library because you probably didn't have one. You can just go to all libraries, click on add file, and basically add any uploaded file in here. Or any file on your machine you can upload via this. And I've downloaded some images before. There's a stock image of another person. And we'll do this one more time, add one more file. And with that, of course, these assets are available for replacement as well. So if you want to take a second and use one of your own images here, or you can use any image to basically go to pre-select assets after you have uploaded them, find them in here. You could of course also you could use other ways of selecting them, but my suggestion is to scroll through here and then just pick those assets and add them. I hope this worked. So of course you have to be in pre-select assets. So I hope you at least have some assets to replace here now. The next step is to actually get this content template out there, right? So what we have to do is to publish it. And I'll spend a few seconds on explaining what this actually does. So once I hit publish here, I'm basically telling everyone who wants to use this template, it's available for use. And I can also make sure that if I decide to change this template, that not every change is propagated to where the content template is used. I hope that made sense. It will make it a little bit easier once we take a look at the portal. But in basic terms, we are creating a work in progress possibility, basically, because we want to make sure that someone can work on the template. That's one, life cycle, let's say, but also the template that's out there should remain unchanged. So we have a published state and we have one in here. Now the published state is available for any portal manager to be chosen. And if I do any changes in here, you know, I mess up the title or something, it doesn't matter until I actually press update. And I can even save my changes, but until I press update, those will not be propagated to the template that's out there. Again, I'm using Control Z or Command Z depending on your manufacturer, and I'm reverting the template so that we still have our title in here. Okay, so now let's get a portal. And oh yeah, if I'm trying to leave without saving, it's warning me in here. I don't mind the last save. I don't want to actually have this out there. And now we can go to portals, choose a portal where we want to add our template, and actually go into the designer. I have made a copy of one of our sample portals, the one that we went through before. You can just create a new portal basically, and add a page. You can just click on pages, add a page, and then you can edit there. I mean, actually, you don't even have to add a page. So as soon as you enter a portal, I will add a page so you can see this. You will see something like that. You will probably not have a blue background designed in there. Your entire screen will be white, and you have a little welcome screen here that prompts you to choose a layout. And this is what we're going to do now. We will just place this on a new page so it's a little bit closer to your use case. Later on, I can show you how this would look like in a more realistic environment. Okay, so now let's actually use a layout with 2 columns, because one important part that I think is very valid when you want to make sure that your template is used by many people is that you add a little bit of description to it. You don't just throw the template there, but maybe you add a little explanation of how the template is being used. So we're using 2 columns. We're actually putting text on the left side, and then we will put our template on the right side. So content templates are obviously one of our widgets. You choose the widget, and then as usual, you're adding the content in the panel. Once you click here, you see all the templates that you have. You can scroll through them. Usually it's not that many. And we will select it. And you can see the template gets added immediately. And we can actually change what's written in here in the button, which I would recommend if you're actually using this out there. We'll just call it webinar template, because we don't want the text that we are using internally to be shown externally here. And with that, I've even changed the button. And the text that I referred to that we could add here, I will show you what I was thinking about for this example here. I can just copy it from here and paste it in our new page, and then we can take a look. I wanted to provide these users or the consumers of this template that will use it later on with some information, because no matter how you will build this template, I think it's never a bad idea to provide a little more details. And as you saw before, you can only see which elements are editable if you hover over them. So my first hint to our audience is hover over the template to see which elements are editable. Very simple. Also, it should be clear that the people have to double click an element to edit it. And I also wanted to make clear that when adding text, you always have to click outside the input field to view the final result. This is what we briefly touched on before as well. I think it's good to make this extra clear. Otherwise, people think, I still see the text while I'm writing and it's going into nowhere. They maybe don't realize that they have to click outside of the box to see the final result. Those 3 points are, of course, just a suggestion. You could add anything else here. You could, for example, say when adding images, you can use cropping features to adjust their size. That's something that we have enabled before, and maybe something you also want to tell your audience in addition, if you didn't already use another channel to communicate this info. So now I think we have a pretty good explanation here on the side. And we can check out the template itself that we have built before, but now from the other side, right? So far, we were the builders and the designers of this template. Now we are the consumers. And of course, in our portal preview, you can also preview the template. So let's click on it here. And you can see, okay, I have my template here. I can see when I hover over some elements, I can see they are editable. There's other elements that are apparently not editable. For example, also the logo. The logo is also just an image. So if you're a multi-brand conglomerate, you know, or a company, you can, of course, also, or you could make the logo adjustable. In this case, we kept it, and we wanted to make sure that there is no way that you can adjust any of that. And now let's take a look at what our image does. When I click on the image, I can see all the replacement images that are available. Let's actually take Arnie here. And you can see I've chosen it, and the system has tried its best to center it, but actually it is, you know, it's not great that the hair is cut off and the positioning is a little bit different to the other one. So I can double click in here. And with that, I can first of all move this around. I could also make the image much bigger, move it around, and I could even flip it. Let's make it smaller again. And thereby, you know, creating this effect that these two people are looking in two different directions. And yeah, they have, of course, everything basically that we have allowed before is possible here, obviously. You could allow much more, but I think this is a pretty close to real life situation scenario here where you want them to do as little as possible. For the title, you could then, of course, fill in the name of the webinar and maybe what it is about. And you could, of course, also create this call to action. You could fill in the time and place. I think the rest is pretty much clear. So now we basically have we have the consumer view of the template. We have filled in all the information that we want. We've chosen the image. The last step, of course, is the exporting. And we have actually recently see, my own tooltip is helping me now. We have not published the portal. So you first have to, you can only export a content template really in the portal out there. So we will actually update here. The portal is now published, and then we can also go to the link. And now if we go to the page, this is the real website now, not our designer. And we click in here. We see the template without our edits, of course, because now we're playing a customer out here. So let's just choose Arnie again, move him around just a tiny bit, and now I can actually export this. And the new feature that I was referring to is under PDF export, because we have added a new standard in here. I don't want to go too much into details because many of you are maybe not even interested into print, but we are now using the latest standard here for print exports. And when you're choosing a PDF export, you can choose if you're using the screens or the print. And in here, you can then even choose the color profiles, which are different between Europe and the US, for example. And once you click export, the export immediately starts, and you can actually use your email banner immediately. That would be it in regards to content templates specifically. So we've basically taken it from the initial setup, importing a PSD, adjusting our import, getting the content template to work. And before we move on to our little outlook here, I wanna mention one more thing that keeps being left out a little bit, I feel like, because you don't have to import a content template. You could just start from scratch. And I think for most cases out there, it is actually sufficient what this builder can do. It's of course no Photoshop and it's no InDesign, but for many social media posts and things that are out there, we have a very capable designer in here, and we won't have the time to go into this further today, but you can add, you know, shapes, images. You can basically build the template that we just saw within here as well without having to import it. Just wanted to mention that. And now I want to go into a little bit of an outlook. And for that, we'll actually go to our dev environment, which of course is always a little bit risky as it's meant for testing and not to be presented, but we'll take that risk today. And I want to show you the feature that we're currently working on. Something that has been on our minds for a very long time, but it just happened to not be such a priority for our customers. So we have done a lot in experience since, you know, a lot of what we've done you can actually see in those tabs, but we have never worked on the audience feature. To explain the audience feature a little bit better, this is the tab that we have added. Let's take a look at the settings of a portal for a moment, because currently you can only have two types of portal accessibility options inside a portal, right? You can either have a public portal or you can have a protected portal. Public means the entire world can see it, or everyone with the link to be precise. And a protected portal at the moment means that your entire organization can see it. Here on our dev environment, we're all seeing the new stuff. So soon protected will actually not mean your entire organization can see it, but it just means whoever you define can see it, which means that the scope can be, of course, much more granular. We can decide in much more detail who exactly can see our portal. And I want to show you this, at least part of it right now. If your portal is published, this is a precondition. You can only change audience member for a published portal. Multiple technical reasons for that we will not go into today. But you go to your tab, you go to audience members, and you basically choose the departments. For example, let's say in this case, we want the content administrators. Do we have something other here? No, we'll go for the content administrators. That's the department that's allowed to be an audience of this portal, but also we can choose individuals. So for example, Isa, who is here at the moment, so I can choose you as well. And thereby we can, you know, I'm just using two now, but thereby we can specify a set of people, so groups and individuals that are then allowed to enter the portal. And this list could go on, you know, it could be hundreds of departments, hundreds of people, and so on. We can also sort this, we can also search for the people, but the most important thing is what it does. So once I save this, basically the entire portal gets protected, and you actually have to log in, identify yourself before you can see the content. Now, there might be a case where you are sending out a portal and the people who are receiving this portal do not, you know about your organization yet. They might not have an account in your DAM system. They might not be known people to you yet. That's why we have the access requests. We have too little time to show you the whole flow here. Again, our warning, if you want to save changes, I'll actually do this time. What's happening here is that on the published portal, if you would go to this portal in an incognito window now, sorry, we'll just copy the link. Oh yeah, actually this was copying the portal. Yeah, I would have to change the sharing again to show you the incognito window. You will have to trust me on this. When we are basically visiting this portal, if someone from outside would visit the portal that we have just edited, then you would have the possibility to request access. Sorry, I've closed the tab of our dev environment. That's why you're not seeing this anymore. But what that means is that anyone can be sent a link from a portal. You can go there and basically request access, which triggers an email to our manager, or to me in this case, because I'm the portal manager here. And the manager can decide if it makes sense to let this person in. And thereby, the whole process of triggering an account and adding the person to a portal is being kicked off. So these are two features. I still want to leave some space for questions. What we're just going to touch on quickly, what's coming after that. The first thing that so currently we're working on audience. The next topic that we will ship is another audience topic, but on another level, because the first release that we are currently working on will concern itself with an entire portal. The next release after that will ensure that you can, even on a page, for that we can actually use our marketing portal, that even on a page level, you can decide who gets in here. So you can imagine this portal is relevant to the entire public. So you will create a public portal, for example, but you have some content in here that's only meant for internal stakeholders. In that case, you could just say, okay, for this page, I want to define an audience, but for the rest, I will just keep it open and let everyone see it. What's also possible is that will be possible, is that you can have a protected portal, and inside this protected portal, you have further protections, basically. So you have the entire portal secured, but inside of that, there's another section that is then only relevant for people inside of it. And the last feature that I want to mention today is another widget that we will add. So basically something that you can choose in the designer, just like any other widget that you are adding. For example, here, we will add another widget that will allow you to not only embed external websites, so basically having an iframe in a portal where another website can be shown. It also allows you to embed HTML code, which of course opens the gates for a multitude of opportunities. It allows you to, for example, first of all, run any custom not any, but run custom HTML snippets. And for example, YouTube or X or Vimeo, Pinterest, all of these platforms provide HTML snippets, and thereby you can include them into your portal. All right. That's the Outlook bit.
Very much like to invite you to our upcoming events. We have a webinar on the 28th of July on AI readiness with your content supply chain and how proper data management can help you to get really AI ready. And if you are going to be in Köln for the DM Expo in September, we will be very happy to see you there. We have a booth there. Michael Kreftner is going to have a corporate lecture on the 23rd of September, and we have a very interesting pre-event gathering together with the Bundesverband für Industriekommunikation on the day prior of the DM Expo. So hope to see you there, or in 2.5 weeks time at our webinar. And now I have to say thank you very much, Steve, for your time.
Thank you as well.
For all the very useful input. I'm very sure Patricia, our designer, is going to be very happy that I now know how to use templates, and I will now have to stick to our own design templates when it comes to webinar templates, as I have followed your instructions while you showed them to us. It was very, very easy, actually, even for me. I'm not very tech savvy, so thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your time and for your interest. And thank you. And I hope to see you quite soon. And if not, enjoy your summer. Have a beautiful, beautiful holiday season. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.